Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Bashim Abashai, Bashim Rakak Badash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. To the confusion of faith joined unto our ranks, the hopefully elect, my fellow laborers, the Akwaf that are listening and learning to you, I say Shalom. Let me grab this so I can knock out this. There we go. All that light was casting a weird reflection on the screen. Salakia. Yeah, this is your brother Malcolm. I'm from the branch of GMS here in Chicago. And this lesson is going to be called Doomers, Boomers, and Elite Oligarch Edomites. All right? The Doomers, the Boomers, and the Elite Oligarch Edomites. All right? Because what you have going on in the world is, as the videos are going to break down themselves, I'm just going to give some scriptural commentary. But you got these Doomers, which are the youth of today, the generation of now, this tech-savvy generation that came along that has all this knowledge of things that the generations in that past didn't. You know, the generations in that past, the baby boomers come from an era, if you worked hard and you went to school and you got a trade and you stayed out of trouble and you went to school and you lived the American dream. And the Doomers are seeing that there is no American dream. The Doomers are seeing that there is no future. The Boomers were the last generation to actually really do well. All their children that have come after them, for the most part, are not doing as well as they did. And especially the now Doomer generation. As we're going to play a little video to explain that. All right? So there's a huge gap of understanding in between the Doomers and the Boomers. The Doomers being the generation now, the youth, people that are in their teens, early 20s, even their early 30s, versus the baby boomers, which are the people, the lower end baby boomers are 57. All right, so the people that are 57 years old and up, all right, or were in that generation of baby boomers, which came after World War II, which is what so-called made America great. Because what happened was America got dominion over the world currency and made the United States dollar became the petrodollar, the world reserve currency, which is what allowed these Edomites here in America to become so rich, so powerful, and then using the things like Hollywood, to help push their way of life, their propaganda, their ideas, their thoughts, their tongue throughout the earth. Without any further ado, let's get a scripture real quick. This is actually, you know what? Let's let him play and then let the scripture come out, because then the scripture will have a little bit more meaning to it after you hear him speak a little bit. So this is Lou Dobbs from Fox.
A new study from Princeton and Northwestern universities concludes that America is now ruled by the interests of the rich, which of course makes us not a democracy, but an oligarchy.
There is a deep understanding in this country that we are living in a rigged economy. It is hard to believe, but in the United States of America today, the top 1/10% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. 1/10%, bottom 90%.
So that's insane. Well, you got 1/10% of the people own as much as 90% of the rest of the people in the country. So how could that be? Is that because they worked hard? No, it isn't. All right, it's because they set themselves up to do so. All right, and then you have your democracy, your so-called democracy has been hijacked by corporations, which allow these people to make laws, bend laws, and get around the laws that were set up by the people. America's been hijacked. by the oligarchy, by the corporations. All right, and America is a corporation. This is Proverbs 1:19. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. And they've taken away the very life out of America, out of the people. All right, that America will never be great again as long as you have corporations. DuPont, Goodyear, just for example. Okay?
Study just came out fairly recently indicating that in the United States of America today, the three wealthiest people in our country, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Warren Buffett, now own more wealth than the bottom half of the American people.
Right, so he didn't mention the people in between. He said the three people in America, the wealthiest, he named them, with Bill Gates was one of them, Warren Buffett. And he said they have more wealth together than the bottom half. Well, then what about the people above them? Those are going to be your Rockefellers and your Rothschilds. They're not going to bring their names up. All right, that's where your real wealth is. Those families of black nobility, as they called it. The DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers. That's where your real wealth is.
Book. It's not dispatches from Disney World. It paints some very stark portraits of poverty, despair, destructive behavior. What makes you think people want to read that sort of thing these days?
That wasn't a question that Joe Sacco and I ever asked. It's absolutely imperative that we begin to understand what...
So as you see, Chris Hedges is talking about his book, Day of Destruction, the Days of Revolt. And as you see what's going on around the world, what's been going on in Europe, as of lately, I think that going into 10 weeks of riots and destructions in France, all right, in different places around the world. Why? Because the same thing is happening. Because they're moving toward their one world currency, their one world order. And the systems are collapsing, and the people are suffering, but the very few at the top are living very, very lavish. This is Psalms 15:27. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hateth gifts shall live. So they're troubling their own house, their own countries, their own lands where they live, causing oppression to fall upon their own citizens, their own people.
Unfettered, unregulated capitalism does the violence of that system, which is portrayed in all of the places that we visited. These are sacrifice zones, areas that have been destroyed for quarterly profit.
Wow.
And we're talking about environmentally destroyed, communities destroyed, human beings destroyed,
Pine
families
Ridge
destroyed. And because there are no impediments left, these sacrifice zones are just going to spread outward.
What do you mean there are no impediments left?
There's no way to control corporate power.
You see that? There's no, you see the guy in the background standing over there overlooking the skyline with the big cigar. There is no way to control corporate power. Corporate power rules over presidents, man. These guys own the lobbyists, and the lobbyists own your politicians. Because you notice all the politicians getting there singing the same old song, and then they get in the office and they fall in line. Barack Obama did that. He got in there talking about all the unnecessary wars and this, that, and the other that was going on, and then he got in office and he killed more people with drones than the two presidents before him. The three presidents before him combined. He killed more people with drones, man, murdered more people with drones. And this is the guy who campaigned on promising to end all the endless fighting and the droning and all that other things. But when he got in there, what'd he do? He fell right in line because that dude standing there in the skyscraper looking out the window with the big old cigar said so.
The system has broken down, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And because of that,
they control both sides.
Just as the natural world has become a commodity that is being exploited until it is exhausted.
Hey, the apostles been telling you that we're all slaves, debt slavers. Our currency is a debt note. All right? It's not currency, it's a debt note. All right? It even tells you that it's a debt note on the currency if you read it. Where it used to say that it was, the currency could be, that it was a note that could be traded for gold or silver. You used to say that on the currency. Now it straight up says on the dollar. Look at it. It says a debt note. It's debt. All right. Taxes are to pay the debt, the interest on the debt for us allowing to use the money. You see that? You get charged for using their currency, and their taxes that are paid go towards the interest, and that's why you can never get above it, because you can never pay off the interest. Especially when they just keep printing it and printing it. The payment on the interest goes up and up and up if you ever not understood what that was all about. You got money, you got $10, and then they charge you $5 or so for using it. If that makes any sense to you, if you understand what's happening. So the more money they print, the bigger the debt goes. The people can never get from under the debt. It's a never-ending cycle of debt. And a currency like that always crashes and leads to destruction. And that's where you are. This is Isaiah 56:11. And it reads, "And of whom thou hast been afraid or feared, thou that hast lied and hast not remembered me, nor laid it to heart, have not I held my peace, even of old, and thou fearest me not?" All right, so Esau grew up in Isaac's house, man. The law wasn't written yet, but it was oral. He knew right from wrong the same way Abel knew what Cain and Abel knew what was right. But what did Cain do? The law was oral, so Esau just has this uncontrollable urge to do the opposite of what he's instructed to do. Kind of like a lot of you hard-headed Israelites today. Is you just like your father the devil, man, which was talking about Esau. Matter of fact, in some cases, you Israelites are more wicked than they are.
Or it collapses.
You call them sacrifice zones.
Right.
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, they have the individuals who live within those areas have no power. The political system is bought off. The judicial system is bought off. The law enforcement system serves the interests of power. They have been rendered powerless.
That's right.
You see that in the coal field.
Okay, that is absolutely right, especially when he talks about Pine Ridge was one of the areas, but the same thing happens in the hood, man, which he's not going to talk about. All right? But I'm going to let it play for a few minutes and let you see some of the devastation that's going on within America that the average citizen isn't even aware of.
Fields of southern West Virginia. Now here, in terms of natural resources, is one of the richest areas of the United States, and yet these harbor the poorest pockets of community, the poorest communities in the United States, because those resources are extracted, and that money is not funneled back into the communities that that are sitting on top of or next to those resources.
That's the MO of the so-called white man, wherever he goes in the world.
That the communities themselves are destroyed, quite literally, because you have not only terrible problems with erosion.
Revelation 11:18, he's going to destroy them that destroy the earth. And they're doing it for profit and destroying the air. And then the money that's made does not go back to the areas where it's being depleted. That's being depleted.
Because when they do mountaintop removal, they'll use these gigantic bulldozers to push off all the trees and then burn them. And when we flew over the Appalachians, and it's a terrifying experience.
That's disgusting.
Because you realize, only then do you realize how vast the devastation is. And these people are poisoned. The water is poisoned. It smells. The soil is poisoned. And the people who are making tremendous profits from this don't even live in West Virginia.
I think you said something like, while the laws of West Virginia are written by the coal companies, 95% of those coal companies are not in West Virginia.
That's right. But they no longer want to dig down for the coal, and so they're blowing the top 400 feet off of mountains, poisoning the air, poisoning the soil, poisoning the water. They use some of the largest machines on Earth.
Let's click over
and
to
you
see the
it
hood
played
now.
out. I mean, Camden, New Jersey, which is the poorest city per capita in the United States, and always the one or two.
You've often heard me say that ghettos are created. They just don't spring up. They're created because they become depleted of all resources, and that's how they get that way. Right? And then they redline you. Make sure you can't move out of it.
Two, in terms of the most dangerous, it's a dead city. There's nothing left. There is no employment.
And what's there in
Whole
Camden?
blocks are
Mostly
abandoned.
mostly Northern Kingdom.
You're talking third or fourth generation of people trapped in these internal colonies. They can't get out. They can't get credit. And what that does.
Another thing you hear GMS say: you can't get credit, you can't get out. Another thing you always hear, that America is a prison camp for the Israelites. And the only reason Chris is making a deal out of this now is because it's starting to affect Esau, Edom, which is also how you know we're at the end, because now these things are happening to so-called white people. Now it's a problem.
Your dignity, your self-esteem, your sense of self-worth.
Yeah, I was struck by your saying Camden is, quote, beset with the corruption and brutal police repression reminiscent of the despotic regimes that you covered as a correspondent for the New York Times in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. You described...
You're damn right. And most of them are going over to the Middle East, to the so-called Middle East, because the Middle East is the direction, not a place. And they're learning from the IDF, the American police departments. Why? Because all of America is going to be like this, and they're going to rule the people with an iron rod, man. You know, breaching houses to come in so they can gather you up and gather up your belongings. Make sure they get all the guns because they don't want any resistance. This is Ezekiel 22 and 12, and it reads, "In thee have they taken gifts to shed blood. Thou hast taken usury and increase. Thou hast greedily gained off thy neighbor by extortion, and hast forgotten me, saith Yahweh power." And so that's it. So Esau has gotten super rich off extortion, man, off of usury, which is illegal. Like we talked about earlier, you know, the interest on the dollar, and that your taxes go to pay the interest, and not so your taxes doesn't go to build new buildings, to build new streets, to repair houses and homes and stores and things. No, your taxes are go to pay the interest on the use of the currency that you're using until they get rid of it. All right.
A city where the per capita income is $11,967. Large swaths of the city, as Joe Sacco shows us, are abandoned, windowless brick factories.
See, these are
the cohesion of its society.
Now we're going to switch over to what's going on with Gad.
A thumbnail sketch of Pine Ridge, South Dakota, the Pine Ridge Reservation.
Well, Pine Ridge is where it began, Western exploitation.
You hear that? Western exploitation began with Pine Ridge. It began with Jake, man. All right? Northern Kingdom got it first, and then Judah got it the worst. But this is where it began. And this is a shame, because these are my people here, man. And this is disgusting to look at, and it really makes me angry.
It was the railroad companies that did it. They wanted the land, they took the land, the government gave them the land, it either gave it to them
damn
or sold
railroad
it to them
companies.
very cheaply. They slaughtered the buffalo herds. They
slaughtered the buffalo herds. All right? They broke our people. They destroyed the land, man. They destroyed our way of life. And then they forced us onto these goddamn reservations, man. As they got wealthy, as they got fat.
These people, forcing a people that had not been part of a wage economy to become part of a wage economy, upending the traditional values. And it really is about the maximization.
And there it is, man. They forced us to be a part of their economy, of their wageless economy, man. Of their welfare system. And then they talk shit to you about being on welfare. Let's click to the next video. Damn commercials. It's a
If you frequent the internet, you have likely seen memes and videos with a character known as Doomer, and or any of his counter characters, Boomer, Bloomer, and Zoomer. If you have not, these are them. Each of these characters represents a distinct personality type, usually associated with a specific generation within current society. The Doomer character is especially popular, and is what we will be focusing on here. The Doomer is an individual who is typically in their 20s and male, although a Doomer in the philosophical sense does not need to be either. He or she does, however, need to be someone who feels a sense of aimlessness and loneliness, and is consequently stricken with a deep despair for life. For the Doomer, life is meaningless, and the world is inevitably doomed by humanity's ignorance, greed, and futility.
And that is so true, and the youth can see that. They completely see it.
As a result, the Doomer sees
and they're acting it out. Hence the drug epidemic, opioids, heroin, meth, the fentanyl, the daily deaths and incarceration of Edomites, of so-called white people, into the being carted off into the prison system all of a sudden. Like I said, that's why Chris Hedges was so concerned.
Little to no reason in engaging in traditional pursuits, and thus retreats from society into apathetic isolation. This character is often used in videos and memes to illustrate various experiences that come with this pessimistic sense of life. Things like working a dead-end job, struggling to maintain or get over romantic relationships, excessive drinking and smoking, feeling alienated from one's friends and family, etc. This character's popularity and widespread relatability is very telling about the conditions of the modern person.
Widespread relatability, man. Right? They can relate to it because this is what the majority of Edomites are living now. A lot of other people too, Jake included. All right? The boomers are dying off, man. They're the biggest population. They're the biggest population within the Edomites, man. All right, the guys, you got so many doomers that are living like this guy's living, that are feeling like this living. Why he's so relatable over the last 4 years? Because that's the majority of their existence and how they're feeling, stuck in a dead end job, man. You know, like that lyrical logic. It said to those who haven't made it yet, you got 5 degrees, yet you 6 figures in debt. But you working at Starbucks. Oh, because Starbucks got a decent health care if you can get on full time. Because most jobs like that they don't give you enough hours to be full time, and there's very few jobs, if any, that give you benefits if you're part time. You know, you can only do that in the military, and that's still limited.
Specifically that of the current young adult generation. It reveals the depth of pessimism and nihilism being experienced, a hopelessness for both the now and for the future. One of the Doomer's counter characters is the Boomer, the name being derived from the term baby boomer, an individual born between 1946 and 1964, 2 generations or so before the Doomer. However, the age and generation of a Boomer does not necessarily matter. What does matter is this character's contrasting outlook on life.
And now, problem is that a lot of boomers, it should be retirement, are forced not to retire anymore. They're worried about their pensions, and their pensions disappearing. And you seeing more and more people in the baby boomer age that are working in convenience stores and in grocery stores and checkout counters and things of that nature. All right? Because their world is starting to collapse in on them as well. This is Daniel 8:25. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Without power, man, Esau will be broken. Call halal Yahweh Bashem Abashai Bashem Rakak Wadash Wa Abad Babal.